Hello everyone, welcome to the GeoEcologist. I am Dr. Krishnanand and you have been watching my videos on various topics related to geography, environment and research methodology on my channel The GeoEcologist. In this session on economic geography, we are going to learn about the world classification of agriculture related to Whittlesey's work. And also we are going to look into the various factors that dominate around the world agriculture, the typology and several other things related to it. But before we go ahead, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and do share the videos with others as well. So now let's learn about this world agriculture typology, which we also say is classification of different kinds of agriculture across the world. Now the first important thing to consider here is that agricultural system or region is an area, or we can say region with similar agricultural functions. So the first important thing to consider here is that agricultural typology is based on the uniqueness of agricultural practice in a particular location. That's important, and it's not an easy task and never has been an easy task to define different agricultural regions. Why? Because remember that agricultural activities are practiced around the world, which is very complex due to the overlapping of several activities. So to segregate them into their uniqueness is obviously going to be a difficult task. So who was the first person who's renowned to do this typology or classification? He is Whittlesey. This gentleman here, the professor at Harvard University, American geographer, in 1936 attempted the first kind of world typology of agriculture or world classification of agriculture. Now what is important here? That he defined agricultural region as an uninterrupted area. That's important, and having some kind of homogeneity. Remember, in regional geography, homogeneity is the basic principle. Homogeneous means it's equal all around or it is unique from outside. So homogeneous is similarity basis. That is the basic principles of regional geography, and with a specifically defined outer limit was his basic definition. Right? Now, if you look into this image, Whittlesey, he was one of the persons who fought for the expansion of geography and promote its human side at Harvard University. So he's renowned. And also, one important thing here at this juncture is that this image is taken from Harvard University report itself. And if you search Whittlesey, you will not find this image on Google in general way. Why? Because Henry George, who was also an American economist, has been used in pictures everywhere if you find on Google. So this is important to consider here, that geography at Harvard, if you search this and Whittlesey, you'll find this original image. While on Google, you'll find this image, which is wrong. So if you are using Henry George image in Whittlesey, it's not good. So you should consider changing it if you are already making a video, or several other YouTubers and other places I've seen in presentations also, this person being changed to this person. So I think this is a correction here that I wanted to make with this video. And now let's go into the typology, into the classification done by Whittlesey in 1936. Whittlesey considered both physical parameters and non-physical parameters for his classification of world agricultural region. So in physical parameters, you have soil, climate, and non-physical is machine, labor, and other factors of production, as we have learned. So he considered agriculture as means both crop growing as well as livestock farming together, because both farmings are dependent on soil types, right? So he considered both this thing in one set of agriculture, right? So 5 basic variables we can say, or the 5 basic factors which are taken for agricultural regional classification by Whittlesey are these 5 factors, right? So the criteria, if you are talking about for this classification, is the 5 variable criteria. Crop and livestock association is the first criteria. Then marketing, or you can say consumption pattern, is going to be the second criteria. Then mechanization, or the method and technique used for agricultural production, is the third. Then method of land use, it may be intensive or extensive, is the fourth, and the fifth one is the output, that is your productivity. So these 5 variables were taken as basic criteria to devise this regional classification or agricultural classification of the world agriculture by Whittlesey. Now let's elaborate and see further how the classes look like. So remember, there are 13 classes of these agriculture, world agriculture. We say 13 agriculture regions of the world, right? Based on these 5 criteria. So 5 variables and 13 is the list of the agricultural regions, right, on the basis of these 5 variables. So nomadic herding, livestock ranching, shifting cultivation, rudimentary tillage, intensive subsistence tillage with paddy cultivation and without paddy cultivation, then commercial plantation, Mediterranean agriculture, commercial grain farming, commercial livestock and crop farming, then you have subsistence crop and livestock farming and commercial dairy farming. And last one is the specialized horticulture, the fruit production as we know. The world has been divided into these 13 broad regions by Whittlesey, which is still considered valid for most of the classifications around or typologies that exist around the world. So let's look into each one of them with a little location and also a little nature and characteristics. So first one that we know is nomadic herding. And if you look into the map here, the location, if you observe, this is Northern Africa, Middle East, then this Asia portions, northern portion of Asia, some parts in Africa. If you observe, this is your nomadic herding, right? So basically, Saharan or sub-Saharan Africa, if you observe, then in Asia, in Scandinavian countries also some patches are found, right? And the basic characteristic, as you know here, is nomadic herdingism. That is basically what is the rear ecological system of agriculture, where people do what? People practice the nomadism, basically moving from one location to the other, and herding, which is cattle rearing, right? So seasonal pattern of movement you can observe in this. Animals are grazed, and transhumance is also important in Himalayan region, as we know, by the Gaddis and Bakarwal community. When in season they take their herds to feed in different mountain passes, different mountain areas, which is very famous in India as well. So this is the common characteristic found in the first criteria of the world agriculture, that is nomadic herders. Right? Then comes the livestock ranchers, livestock ranching. So where do you find livestock ranching happening? Where in Brazil, Argentina, Peru, New Zealand, these areas, also Australia and Republic of South Africa, these places have large lands for basically the grazing purposes. So livestock ranching is majorly done into cattle, sheep, goats, horses. These are the things where it is important. Alongside it, the third one is your shifting cultivation. The word itself is shifting from one location to the other, right? So shifting cultivations are the primitive form of this utilization of soil and tropical rainforests, clearing of the forest, burning of the forest, and then clearing it for the patch of land for agriculture. And when again after 2-3 years, when that agricultural land is done, now it is started to degrade in production, people move, they shift. So where do you find in the world? This is the patch of land in Americas, in Africa and Indo-Pacific, right? So India, and you will find it in northeastern region still prevalent. So these are the areas on map that is important to understand. Then comes the fourth one is rudimentary tillage. Now the word itself tells you that most confined to tropical lands where you have Central and South American societies, African, Southeast Asian societies, where crop rotation occurs. Right? So most of the field will have potatoes, sweet potatoes, maize, sorghum, banana, etc. These are the major areas. And if you observe this rudimentary tillage, you will find that rudimentary tillage is very common to mostly developing countries or underdeveloped countries of the world. Right? Then comes the fifth one is intensive subsistence tillage. Now this intensive subsistence tillage, if you observe, this is where you have this color which is red, right? So this orangish red color which you observe here, you'll find mostly with paddy dominance, which is also said to be lands of monsoon. So if you observe this portion, this Indo-Pacific region as well as the Southeast Asia, this area has most of this intensive subsistence tillage where rice growers are the most. So location, if you observe, China, Japan, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Philippines, right? This is the area where monsoon is also dominant. Right? So there it is with paddy dominance. And the next one is without paddy dominance, where paddy cultivation is not there, but still intensive subsistence is there, right? So there you will find that land is intensively used and worked primarily by human power. So lots of labor resources are induced, while the region suffers what is not that much of rainfall. So wheat, soybean, barley, these are the major crops if you observe, but this area also has some famine related problems and regional sufferings related to food security. So this is where it is coming, that it is intensive subsistence but without paddy cultivation, rainfall is little lesser in here, right? Then you have commercial plantation. Now observe the word commercial, it's only for business purpose and it's a plantation agriculture. If you remember, this is the most colonial type of agriculture, right? So cash crops are grown on the hill slopes in a larger area, and location of this plantation agriculture was originally applied specifically to the British settlements, right, in Americas and also in India, West Indies and several other places where the slopes were used for tea, coffee, rubber, these kind of plantations. So that's important in commercial plantation agriculture. Then comes the 8th category, which is Mediterranean agriculture. As the name suggests, the climate has Mediterranean impact. That is winter rainfall majorly, right? So if you observe the areas around Mediterranean, also some coastal areas, some coastal tips of Australia and also Africa, right? So if you observe the locational importances here, and these area have a distinctive type of the flower growing season, vines growing season, right? So basically citrus fruits, wine and several other production of fruits and other things are involved here in this kind of agriculture. Then you have commercial grain farming. Now remember, this is not a simple intensive grain farming, but commercial level. So large tracts of land with better technology and also harvesting at the same time is used in this kind of commercial grain farming. So where would you find this? Remember, great wheat belts where Australia, North America, steppe in Russia, Argentina, United States, Canada and former Soviet Union. These areas which are now part of mostly developed nations of the world, where you have people, more money, more land tracts and also advent of technology like tractors and machineries for cropping and harvesting. That is where this commercial grain farming is done, right? Then comes the 10th category, which is commercial livestock and crop farming. The word is livestock and crop, right? So what do you find? Mostly European highlands, pampas of Argentina, Southeast Australia, then you have South Africa, New Zealand, where you have livestock and crop farming at a commercial level, right? Then subsistence crop and livestock farming. Now here, commercial, here subsistence. Livestock is common. So this is just for subsistence. Again, when the word comes subsistence, remember it's belonging to poor regions, not economically very rich regions. So what you observe, Northern Europe, Middle East, mountain regions of Mexico, right? With, the crops are raised alongside the livestock, traditional way of farming, poor quality of seeds and animals are poorly husbanded, right? So wheat, maize, rye, barley are the major crops in these areas of the world. Then comes the 12th one. Now it is commercial dairy. Only dairy basically is commercial here, which means what? Butter, then you have cheap, condensed, dried milk and all these milk and milk related products, the dairy products that we know are famous in these areas. So Europe, Northern USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, Finland, France, Switzerland, wherever you find these chocolates are very famous, milk chocolates, remember, commercial dairy farming. So Swiss chocolates are very famous. If you remember, it contributes 40% of agricultural income of the world, right? So dairy farming in commercial level is one of the best enterprising works in agriculture around the world. Then comes the last category, which is again specialized, but in what? Not in agriculture specifically, but horticulture. Right? So specialized cultivation of vegetable, fruits and flowers is majorly into this, where you find Northwestern Europe, Britain, Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, France and Italy. So what kind of divide you see in this entire 13 classes is a developing and developed nations divide, clear-cut demarcated, right? In terms of economically superior and inferior, clear-cut demarcated, right? Through the 13 regions of the world. So that's important to take away from here. Now, if you look into the map, this map can be used and you can find any other map as well, where you can categorize these 13 into one world map and you can practice where you can answer properly with a map if a particular question is asked related to one particular portion out of these 13 categories. So generally a short answer question is asked. In a long answer, it's too long that 13 categories will be described. So prepare for each category. If you're preparing for an examination, for each category, prepare a short answer alongside the mapping of it, which I have described. So location and characteristics are the two things that you must consider while learning this Whittlesey agricultural typology classification that we have learned here. Now come to its merits. So what is its merit? It is a pioneer work, first of its kind of classification, which gave a impetus to furthermore studies on agricultural regions of the world, right? That's why it is very important. 5 variables is commonly available and it is a statistical determination. So you can collect data according to these 5 variables and look into the regional analysis further. That's a good point here. And it gives an overview to analyze and create comparative view of the world agriculture. As I said, if you want to compare developed countries with developing countries agriculture, it gives you an overview here itself. The study focuses on major categories or dominant agricultural typology. So it means the dominant typology, at least you can identify across the world just by looking into this 13 regions of the world, right? And then the classification serves as a framework for future studies of world agriculture. So these are certain merits that you need to take care, and few limitations are also there, that it is highly generalized, institutional, cultural and political factors were not considered, which have a greater role to play in the practice of agriculture, and also local, national and global situations are different, right? So what you observe is the scale factor was missing in this, and Whittlesey has not taken into consideration some more indicators that could have, like land tenancy, land ownership, size of land holdings, fragmentation of holdings and government policies across the world. So these are certain things which also determine to a great extent on what decision a farmer is going to take in order to qualify in which of the categories, which kind of agriculture he or she is going to practice. So that's what is the limitation in this particular classification, or we say world agricultural typology. So now when we have learned in details about the Whittlesey agricultural typology, classification and several other factors related to it, in the sessions to come, we'll be talking more on economic geography and several other topics related to it. So stay tuned, stay safe, keep watching and learning, and don't forget to subscribe and share the videos with others as well.